Hello, 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 and welcome to this week's Full Body Chill stream. I'm FEARSONA, you can call me Fear, you can call me Sona, and I'm your friendly neighborhood true crime VTuber here to give you full body chills. Okay, so today's stories are about the night shift because I got inspired after playing the closing shift just a few days ago. But okay, let me start with the first story. I hadn't seen Mike in a few months. He'd been buried in work, and our usual weekend nights out had disappeared. Then, he called me on a Thursday and invited me over for drinks. I jumped at the invite, but took note of how depressed he sounded on the phone. Wait, because someone donated? Oh, Cesario just donated. Going to my own night shift soon, so I'll remember to play this live stream and maybe a couple of your other ones during shift. Are you sure about that? Okay. From now on, if you guys donate, I will acknowledge it at the end of this story, okay? Because I don't want to break apart the story too much. Oh, and Silverjack just became an even angrier mob for the second month, so they got their golden heart. Congratulations. Okay. Let me restart the story from the beginning. I hadn't seen Mike in a few months. He'd been buried in work, and our usual weekend nights out had about disappeared. Then, he called me on Thursday and invited me over for drinks. I jumped at that invite, but took note of how depressed he sounded on the phone. By the time I got there, Mike had already started drinking and was slurring his words. A dark cloud seemed to hover over him, which got worse as we drank. I finally asked what had been going on with him. Mike turned darker, afraid. He said it had to do with work. I never really knew what Mike did for a living. I did know that he worked for the city in the tech department and was involved with the CCTV surveillance network. But I never knew what his day-to-day operations were, which he began to describe in detail. Mike explained there were thousands of cameras scattered throughout the downtown core, outlying neighborhoods and well into the suburbs of our 1 million plus city. His responsibility was to categorize and archive all the incoming footage. Most of the footage went into very general classifications and were saved in hard drive farms and identified with a lengthy combination of numbers and letters for categorical archiving. They were truly meant to be forgotten about. It was an expansive task. But Mike designed and built an AI screening program that detected common patterns in footage and sectioned out anomalous behavior for review. The vast majority wasn't noteworthy, something like 99.99%. Then there was the 0.01%. The car accidents, assaults, swarmings, rapes, abductions, murders. Those went into a special archive for use in criminal investigations. And then there was the 0.0001%. They were held in a classified archive and contained footage capturing events that for all accounts were unexplainable. This was called the Tartarus Archive. I looked up the word Tartarus afterwards and discovered it was one of the darkest, deepest prisons from Greek mythology. It was said that if you dropped an anvil from heaven, it would take 7 days for it to reach the earth. It would take another 7 days for the anvil to reach Tartarus. It was the place you sent titans when there was nowhere else that could contain them. When Sisyphus was condemned to an eternity of futility and frustration with a large boulder and a mountain slope, that punishment was carried out in Tartarus. As it turned out, the name was quite fitting for the archive's growing contents. Some footage could be simplified to strange optical anomalies in the camera and coincidences of light or crack hits on a bender through the subway systems. Other footage, though, defied logic. The others are what captured Mike's mind that evening. He'd been breaking protocol and bringing hard drives home at night. In fact, he'd been splicing the footage together, capturing and compiling repeat aberrations and editing them into linear sequences. Mike wanted to show me some. It wasn't in a bragging or showing off kind of way. It felt more like sharing of a heavy burden kind of way. I asked if showing me would get him in trouble, but he waved the idea away. Of course it would get you in trouble. Like, what the... Why would you bring this home? Why would you bring this home, and why would you slice it up when you know it's breaking the protocol and the rule? It's not gonna end well. And you're showing it to a friend. No, like, motherfucker, why? Anyway. I said, yeah, obviously. I want to see what's going on in my city. Mike led me into his workroom, where he had monitors and towers and piles of externals set up. We sat down and he skimmed through some drives nervously. Then he landed on one. Mike told me this anomaly was codenamed Lincoln Spectre. He pressed play. On the largest screen, black and white footage started up, showing Lincoln Avenue, one of our less attractive downtown streets, at 3 a.m. The camera angle showed the length of Lincoln Avenue, as it led into the downtown core. The street appeared empty and quiet. From a side road, a woman emerged, walking towards the camera. As she approached the intersection, she turned over her shoulder and appeared to scream. The woman took off, sprinting past the camera, which cut to a new, wider angle from another camera across the street. We watched the woman running frantically, seemingly being chased. But she was the only one on the street. There was no one else anywhere around her. The woman kept screaming as she ran, and the cameras kept following, cutting between different CCTV angles. We watched as the woman was chased into the middle of an empty intersection. She fell, then cowered as if something massive was standing over her. The woman's neck stiffened, and she began to levitate off the ground. Her body looked like a rag doll as something lifted her by the throat until she was floating, a dozen feet above the road, in the middle of the intersection. Then, the woman's head snapped to the left and her body fell back to the ground. The video ended and went black. I sat shocked. Mike saw my expression and said, "You ain't seen nothing yet." I asked if that was real, if what I saw was unaltered, if what I saw was a raw footage. Mike said all he'd done was put the clips together. None of the content had been touched. He told me he found out the incident ended up being described as a hit and run, and the case was left figuratively open for more evidence to amass, which it never would. The department kept the footage hidden, claiming it was a camera malfunction. No one outside of Mike and his boss had seen the video of how the poor woman actually died. I started to understand the air of somberness Mike was carrying around. Mike started the next video. This one was codenamed Black Crab and was much longer than the previous one. It started in the subway systems, at the underground Walkley station, shortly after closing up for the night. Walkley was the last stop on the route, and the exterior was shouldered by a new housing development on one side and untouched forest and swampland on the other. The camera was pointed down along the subway platform on the east side and showed its entire length with benches and garbage cans populating it. At the far end, the tunnel was filled with darkness. The lights on the platform shut off, and the station went dark. The camera switched to night vision, and everything became visible again. My eyes trained on the platform, waiting for something to happen. Finally, there was a movement. It was coming from the tunnel. It was difficult to identify what exactly it was at first, as its movements were strange and the footage was grainy. But it got closer to the camera and I got a better look. It resembled a human, a man, but he was walking on his hands and feet, upside down, with his back arched and his stomach pointed to the ceiling. He had long, dark hair and dragged along the ground, and he wore tattered layers of old jackets and torn pants. He moved like a crab, jerkily yet quickly and easily as he made his way to the staircase. The footage cut to a new camera in the dark hallway, leading to the stairs out of the station. We watched the crab walker claw up 2 steps at a time, and then crawl over to the turnstiles and towards the exit. The footage cut again, now showing the exterior of the station entrance. The crab walker squeezed and twisted and maneuvered his body through the locked and closed entrance gate. It looked impossible to accomplish, but he did it. Once outside, the crab walker eyed his surroundings before skittering off towards the woods and disappearing. The footage cut to an hour later and revealed the crab walker reappearing from the woods. He was dragging a small animal by the tail in his teeth. The animal looked like a cat. The crab walker squeezed back through the gate, crawled through the station, and disappeared into the subway tunnel. Again, Mike saw my expression and told me there was more. He showed me the length of the video, which was over an hour long. Mike had compiled over 20 sequences of the crab walker creeping out of the subway station and into the woods. Mike skimmed through the video towards the end and we watched the crab walker come out of a sewer in a downtown alleyway. It crawled over to a pile of garbage bags and cardboard boxes. Then it jumped into them, and some kind of vicious frenzy ensued. There was someone else in the pile of garbage. Hands and feet thrashed around as they were struggling for their life. Then the movement stopped, and the hands and feet went still. The crab walker's body moved jerkily about, but I couldn't see what was happening because of the darkness and all the garbage bags and boxes obscuring the camera's view. Mike leaned over to me and whispered that the crab walker was eating a homeless man. This caused a criminal investigation as the dead body was found mutilated and festering in the open alleyway. Mike followed up on the inquiry. What he discovered was the crab walker was who authorities believed to be a man named David Fletcher. Decades ago, David had been a prominent lawyer with a family. One Christmas, there was a house fire and his wife and kids were killed in the blaze. It was David's fault. He lost everything, including his mind. Everyone has a breaking point, whether they know it or not. A place where they bent too far and then snap. David found his. Family and friends described his descent as nightmarish. David lived on the streets, became addicted to drugs, and tumbled into mental illness. The last anyone knew of him was from 10 years prior. He'd thrown himself in front of a subway at the Walkley station, and no one heard from him ever again. It appeared that, somehow, David had survived this subway hit. His back had broken and healed strangely, causing him to move the way he did. He'd adapted to the new posture and lived in the darkness of the subway tunnels, finding sustenance from drain water and the wild animals he caught. That was what Mike found out, at least. But then he said that was just the answer the investigators gave in the discovery. Who knows where the truth lay? Mike said there was always an answer for these videos he saw. Whether the answers were true or not, no one really knew. But the ones that had come to the public all needed explanations, however absurd. Either way, David was never found and didn't reappear on the subway footage. Mike plugged a new hard drive in. He poured a fresh drink and told me that this was the one that was troubling him. The file was codenamed Cloud Mirror. I wasn't sure if I wanted to see it, but before I could object, Mike pressed play. Oh, fuck you, Mike. How about you ask for consent, huh? Maybe I don't want to see it. Maybe after seeing Crabman and freaking, what was the first one? Oh, the invisible fucking monster snapping a woman's neck. Maybe I don't want to see the other one, the third one. That just is troubling you. Which, by the way, is fucked up, because I'm like, I mean, the other two didn't trouble you? Jesus. Okay. Mike, you need therapy. All the monitors lit up with footage from different intersections downtown, on the exact date and time as each other. There were 5 in total. The streets on each screen were empty and quiet. No cars or people. Suddenly, at the exact same time in the center of the intersections, a small glow pulsed into existence. It was some kind of orb, roughly the size of a bowling ball. The streetlights around it pulsed with energy waves as the orb grew larger. It grew to the size of a beach ball. Then it flashed out. The streetlights went back to normal and the intersection was as lifeless as it was before. I asked Mike what they were. He told me he had gigs of footage of the orbs and had watched them repeatedly. He didn't know what they were at first. Then they started to change. Mike clicked onto the next video. Again, the 5 monitors lit up with the same intersections and time of night, but several weeks later. The streetlights glowed and pulsed and an orb manifested into existence again. It grew to its beach ball size, but then altered its surface and glow. Something gas-like replaced it, growing outward into a couch-sized cloud of dark gray. One of the cameras was closer, so I got to see the small clouds in detail. It looked like a volcanic eruption wrapping around itself. They were large, constantly morphing blobs that curled outwards from a glowing center, resembling a mandelbulb fractal. And it was fascinating to see them floating in the middle of the street, so alien to our roads and stoplights and street lamps. Then they began to move, gliding down empty roads. The cameras cut to different angles, following the clouds on some unknown path, zigging and zagging onto new streets and through alleyways. Then they would stop. The clouds hovered in the center of the intersection. They would lower to ground level, standing straight up like a large coffin, holding rigid to the shape. Their exteriors continued to shift and mold together like magnets made of smoke. Something on one of the monitors caught my eye. Down the street, people appeared. They had seen the cloud and were walking towards it. The group looked drunk and fascinated by the floating entity. So much so, they were approaching it. As they did, the cloud became brighter. The street lamps around it pulsed. The group were in some kind of trance, staring into the morphing blob. One of the group, a guy, stared into it like a zombie, then walked right into the cloud and disappeared. None of the group tried to stop him. Instead, another one followed him in, and another, and another. All 5 members of the group disappeared in the cloud. Then, they reappeared, one at a time, the guy first, then in the order they went in. Only, they weren't stumbling and boisterous and drunk now. They were walking upright, using minimal movements. They formed in a perfect 5-person circle for several seconds over quick words, then turned and all went in separate directions. Their strides, arm swings, and speed all matched. Another monitor showed a similar situation with a larger group of people, lost in reverie as they marched, one after another, into the cloud. Each monitor showed the same thing now. People entering the clouds and coming back out. Different. Mike stopped the video. I asked him if he'd shown this to anyone else. He said he hadn't. Not even to his boss. To his one boss. Which was a problem. Because he had a meeting with his boss in the morning to discuss the missing footage. I asked why he hadn't shown the footage to his boss. This footage seemed more than serious. People were being replaced by something. Mike sighed and put a new video on. The main monitor lit up and showed a new downtown street. The date was now from earlier this week. One of the clouds was floating in the intersection. A middle-aged couple were walking by. The husband with a slight limp in his right leg. The couple saw the cloud and were sucked in by its aura. They approached it, eyes wide and mouths open. Both the husband and wife entered the cloud and disappeared. After a moment, they reappeared. The husband's limp was gone. Mike turned to me and said, "That was my boss and his wife." Whoa, okay. Wow. Okay. That's fucking spooky. Okay, that's it. That's the end of this story. Holy shit. So the boss is now the cloud baby. Damn. Just waiting for the Doctor Who theme to start anytime now. No, no Doctor Who, but damn. Okay, so the cloud baby. That kind of sounds cute, but like it's not. I mean, not in this story. Like no. Also, don't do this. Don't do this. Don't take out footage from. Actually, I mean, I guess he did the right thing because now he knows. But like, no, don't involve yourself. Like, just don't. Just don't. You know, just don't. Just get on with your life. Ignore it. And I say that even though I look into weird cases and unsolved cases, which I probably shouldn't, because FBI is onto me. Cliffhanger moment. What the hell? Cloud baby? I'm sorry. Cloud baby sounds like the. Oh, okay, never mind. Never mind, because it's gonna sound stupid, and also I'm gonna regret saying anything. They aren't cloud babies. They just went on a full isekai in that brief moment. Oh Jesus. Wait, but what if it helps you avoid it? What? I mean, yeah, okay, yeah. Don't steal footage, weird footage from your work. Also, quit and just move on. Yeah, I probably wouldn't. Like, I would, or bring it to the authorities. Jesus Cristo. Sounds like some H.P. Lovecraft situation. Yeah, minus racism, I guess. Because, yeah, I mean, H.P. Lovecraft, great, like, some good stories, but, like, you're reading it and just, like, yep, here it is. Here it, yeah, did you have to? Okay. Let me continue with, the next story. Listen, it's cool. Taking stuff from work home is normal. Pens, paper clips, eldritch horrors in printer paper, etc. The usual stuff. Seriously. Also, yeah, R.I.P. the British Queen. Man, I thought she was, immortality and immortal and stuff. Someone pointed it out on Twitter, but they were like, "Wow, what if she was?" Okay, I don't wanna kind of joke about it because it's sad. So, you guys should like look on Twitter. There was like this tweet, which was like, "Oh, what if the moment she died, the eldritch horrors start pouring into England, into the United Kingdom, because she was actually much older than 96, and she was like a guardian." And she was like the last guardian, and now the shit will hit the fan, demons. Which I thought was a cool idea for a book, by the way. So whoever you are, Twitter poster, please turn it into a book. Yeah, R.I.P. Queen Elizabeth. Which is interesting. Okay, just fun fact. Did you guys know that her father, which I think what was it? He was King George the IV or VI? I don't remember. But basically, if you guys have seen the movie The King's Speech, that's about Queen Elizabeth's father. Which I mean, you probably like if you've seen the movie, then you know. So yeah, interesting. I actually didn't know because I've never seen the movie. I just read it because obviously when the news kind of hit the the public, I was just like, okay, let me look it up. Let me look up the history. Oh, George the VI. Okay, yeah. So yeah, like that was the movie was about him. When the previous his brother just kind of abdicated. Was it Edward III? And then yeah, like he had this kind of stutter or. And yeah, the movie is actually about him. So interesting. I didn't know. I should watch the movie. The premise is interesting, so I might give it a try. Okay, so let me go on to the second story. I work as a warehouse manager in a warehouse that is around the edge of town. It's an old warehouse, but it's been renovated a lot over the years. But its basic foundations remain the same. It's a huge building with lots of room for stock. The building is basically a mass maze of rows and rows of stock. There is one massive entrance for trucks, and that's about it. Towards the side of the building, there are basic smaller rooms such as the security room with all the cameras and the toilets. My room is also there, and that's where I usually spend my time. Our warehouse isn't a big one compared to a regular warehouse, and we only have around 40 employees at one time. On the night shift, even less, 25. It's located pretty much next to the woods. I won't bore you with any more details and get straight to the point of me writing this. Our warehouse isn't a normal... Oh, sorry, I forgot to... Jesus. What is wrong with me? So the previous story was called My Friend Works for the City's CCTV Archives and has seen some disturbing things. And it was posted to subreddit No Sleep by 10-Minute Horror user. So I'm sorry, the link obviously is in the description down below, as are the other links. So you guys can check the stories out, and please do support the writers who wrote the stories. Okay, sorry, I kind of like missed. I kind of forgot to like give credit, but obviously the credit is in the description of this video. Okay, let me get back to this story. I won't bore you with any more details and get straight to the point of me writing this. Our warehouse isn't a normal one. Strange things happen on the night shift. To combat these strange happenings and for employee safety, we have created rules for the warehouse night shift. Oh, hell no. Is this gonna be about breaking the... Oh my god. People forgetting the rules. People breaking the rules. Goddamn. Anyway. I've been working at this warehouse for around 15 years, and believe me when I say I've seen everything. As for the rules. Rule number 1. At 10 p.m., go to one of the rooms, and if you are in the main room, find somewhere to hide. You will have to stay there until 11 p.m. Do not move out into the open between 10 p.m. and 11 p.m. Rule 2. If you hear crying, do not try to find the source. That's like classic rule classic rule everyone breaks in a horror movie. They hear a baby crying, or crying for that matter, and they follow the sound. I'm just like, hell no. Hell no. Middle of the night, dead of the night, creepy warehouse, and they fucking follow the sound of crying. Call the police. Call. I don't know. Or stay where you are and just like board up your room. Whatever. Just stay in hiding. Rule number 3. If you see a statue while walking around the complex, stare at it and keep on moving. Only stop looking at it when it disappears, out of your sight as you walk away. We have many more rules, and each one of them has an unfortunate tale behind them. Let me tell you the story behind rule number 1. It was late May 2005, when I was preparing myself for the long night shift with a cup of coffee. The wind was whistling, and it was lightly raining. I shivered under my thin jacket. I had to work double shifts back then to make ends meet. I was also an employee back then. Andy, a first-timer for the night shift, sat next to me and we talked about stuff. He was a young man and had gotten married a little over a year ago. Due to his financial difficulties, he eventually started to work the night shift. He talked about his family and how he had to start earning more. I listened and tried to sympathize with him. Soon, it was 9 p.m. and we walked to the warehouse to start our work. Our work mostly consisted of organizing the stock for delivery tomorrow and also for security. At around 10 p.m., I heard a scream. I ran around the massive room, looking through the rows of shelves, and when I arrived at the source, It was Andy, and he had fallen to the floor. His eyes were wide and he seemed heavily shaken. He pointed in front of him with a shaky finger. My gaze moved up to where he was pointing, and I locked eyes with the thing he was pointing at. It was a guy in a plague doctor costume. Classic black cloak covering his whole body. He was also wearing a pristine ceramic mask with a long sharp beak on the end. His eyes were a black void. The plague doctor looked me back dead in the eye and said in a deep voice, "He has the pestilence." I started nervously laughing as fear took control of me. It was just a stupid joke. Suddenly, the plague doctor seemingly pulled a bag out of nowhere from inside his cloak and took out a dangerous-looking tool from it. It looked like a scalpel, but it was rusted. It had reddish stains all over it. I immediately got a feeling of dread in my stomach and backed away. Andy wasn't as lucky and appeared to be frozen in fear. The plague doctor came closer towards Andy. He took more tools out of his bag and started using them on Andy. The bag didn't look like it could carry that many tools. Andy appeared hypnotized and he didn't move away. I watched frozen as the plague doctor mutilated Andy, rearranging his organs and cutting him up. Andy passed out at some point and fell on the floor. The plague doctor finished and stitched him up, and then he looked straight up at me. My muscles suddenly started working again, and I ran for my life. Andy was found walking around in the warehouse after the incident. The police covered it up covered it all up, and we were told not to talk about it. Andy was still alive, but he was an empty shell. He did not speak and his eyes were empty. He walked around and he didn't respond to anything. He was moved to some facility out of town soon after the incident. Ever since then, we have had rule number 1 in our employee manual, and make sure it's enforced at all times. I'm going to go for my shift now. And then there's part 2 and 3. So this was like part 1. Okay. Rule number 2. If you hear crying, do not try to find the source. The story behind this rule is one that haunts me to this day. I'm surprised I lived to tell you the tale. It was early December 2005, and I was running late for the shift. It was a particularly chilly night. Small snowflakes fell from the sky. I drove quickly in my car with the heaters all the way up. I parked inside the parking lot and prepared myself for the cold outside. I tightly wrapped my fuzzy scarf around my neck and I stepped out of my car. I hated these particular night shifts. The warehouse was even colder than outside, and since it was my employee days, I had to work all night. Nowadays, I just monitor everything. I ran up the asphalt to the massive entrance of the warehouse. Most people were already here and had started working. Jim, my old manager back then, scolded me for being late and instructed me to do things. I couldn't be bothered to argue and silently started working. I started walking down one of the aisles to the back of the warehouse to pick some packages. Suddenly, I heard a faint sound. It was the sound of someone crying. The sound wasn't male or female. It sounded unsettled. It somehow unsettled me and made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Some primal instinct deep within me told me to ignore the sound and leave. Ignore the sound and leave. Just leave. Do not follow the sound. It's fucking weird. It's also the warehouse. Don't. Why? 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 My manager must have heard it too, because he comes up behind me after a few seconds and asks, "Did you hear that?" I nod and point towards the direction it's coming from. I signal for him to stop, but he shakes me off. "Stop! Do not..." Oh god. Okay. But he shakes me off and continues going. Of course he does. Suddenly, I hear a scream. Jim's scream. I rushed up to where he was, and I saw something that makes my veins turn into ice until this day. The first thing I noticed was that it was tall, over 2 meters. The next thing I noticed were its hands. They were almost the length of its body and were very disproportionate. It looked extremely malnutritioned, and its ribs were protruding out. It was hairless and extremely white. Its fingers were stained red and were extremely sharp. I looked up at its face. It had black, sunken eyes that looked like beads. It had slits for a nose, and its head was hairless and white, just like the rest of its body. Its jaw extended abnormally large and hung over its chest. Its mouth looked like a gaping, bloody wound, and the teeth were barely distinguishable from the tissue. I yelped and stepped a couple of steps back. Jim stood frozen at this thing's feet, staring right at its face. The horrifying creature then extended its arms and picked up Jim. Jim didn't even have time to scream before the creature devoured his head in one go. The creature continued its meal and started to eat more and more of his body. Blood spilled everywhere, but the creature continued, freshly staining its hands and face in blood. The creature fed like it hadn't eaten in weeks, and soon it finished the final bits of Jim with a crunch of bones. It then poked out a tongue I never thought it had and licked the floor clean of blood. I ran before the creature could get me. I must have looked like I had totally lost it. I screamed incoherently when I got to the main area and started pointing in the direction of the creature. Everyone looked through the entire warehouse and couldn't find anything. The only evidence of the whole ordeal was a drop of Jim's blood on my work boots. Ever since then, we added the second rule to our list of rules. Wait! Wouldn't there be an investigation? Like, where's Jim? Also, why are you still working there? That is the most important question. Not like, oh, why don't you have a rule for this situation? It's rather like, why are you working there? Why are you not reporting this place? And why is it still freaking open? Cool. Okay. Then the next part. So from 12 a.m. to 1 a.m., if you see a creepy statue, keep it within your sight at all times until you turn around a corner and the statue naturally disappears from your view. Immediately go to the guard room and press the emergency alarm button. All personnel will follow the evacuation procedure. If you thought the story behind the last rule was gruesome, wait until you read this one. It was mid-March 2006, and the weather was slowly changing. It was a humid, rainy night. I was early for the night shift, and I took my time driving to the warehouse. I had a song I no longer remember on the radio, and I was nodding along with it. The rain drummed constantly on my windscreen, as my wipers wiped it away smoothly. The outside air smelled of the distinct musky and pleasant rainy smell. trees gently rustled in the wind, and the moon shone brightly from behind the heavy rain clouds. I arrived at the warehouse and parked my car in the ever-so-spacious empty car park. I prepared myself for a dash in the rain as I grabbed my backpack. I opened the car door and ran, and the rain immediately started invading. I was half damp when I made it back. I made it safely to the warehouse. Since I was pretty early, not many employees were there yet. All of us also had a habit of being ridiculously late to our shifts as well. Gee, I wonder why. I wonder why you are being late to your shift. Maybe because, there are monsters that are gonna freaking tear you apart if you don't, run away, not follow crying sound, or... I would not show up. Excuse me, sorry. Sorry for this outburst, but holy shit. Okay. Our manager was sick of it, but it was... Okay, listen. Listen, manager. You piece of shit. You are sick of it. Oh, you are sick of it. Please. So you're sick of it when employees just die being eaten alive by some creature. Great. Great. Manager of the month, of the year. Okay. Okay, I'm done. Our manager was sick of it, but it wasn't like anyone else was willing to work the night shift here. We were joking around and just having fun when the manager walked in and pointed at me and David. Oh my god, David's gonna die. While motioning for us to come over to him. Can you guys go look around for Marcus and tell him his shift is over now? My manager at the time commanded while motioning toward the rows of stock. We nodded and walked to the rows of stock to search for him. We didn't talk much as we were both focused on the task we were given. I could not have anticipated what I would see next. We both walked around another corner about to check the last row and make a final sweep of the whole warehouse when we saw Marcus's body lying on the floor. His lower body was untouched. His upper body was covered in spilled blood that still looked quite fresh. His neck was a bloody stump, while his head was rolling away on the floor. The expression on his face was a shocked and fearful expression. We looked up and came face to face with a creepy, grotesque statue. It looked like a larger version of a suit doll. It was big and bloated. Its hands and legs were short and fat. Its head was swollen like a balloon, and it had no neck. Most of its skin was colored like old parchment paper, while its face was a mix of blood and skin. It had two beady bright blue eyes that were situated way too close together. My breaths grew shallow as my heart thumped faster and my mind screamed for me to turn around and run. A feeling deep in my stomach told me something was not right. The thing stood completely still. Thus, we refer to it as a statue in the rules. It stood so still it genuinely looked like a lifeless statue. It was incapable of movement, or so it seemed. David stuttered out something along the lines of, "Something is wrong. Let's run." No shit, Sherlock! Something is wrong. Your coworker is lying on the ground with his head just clean torn off and a, horrified expression like, Texas Massacre, Chainsaw Massacre just happened. Okay. Now, obviously he didn't say that in a calm way. He actually used some obscene language and said it in a quite panicked way. David turned around and I turned around about a millisecond later. Out of the corner of my eye, I spotted a blur of movement. Before I knew it, David dropped down on the floor with an echoing thud and his head rolled to the floor. Blood gushed out everywhere and got on my feet. I swiftly turned around and was literally nose to nose with the creature. I stumbled back and nearly fell over and slipped on the blood. I continued facing the creature as I walked away. Once I turned around the corner, I ran and alerted everyone. Everyone believed me due to the last 2 incidents, and we all evacuated. We had a handful more incidents with the creature throughout 2006 until we finally learned that if you looked at the creature, it would not move and kill you. Since then, we started to make a written rulebook. Yeah, can't speak. For these kinds of incidents, and now we are at 10. Who knows what kinds of creatures we will encounter in the future. Also, I don't know, is it just me or like everyone suspiciously believes this guy? Like every time some like shit happens, he's there and he miraculously survives while someone else dies being ripped apart and he has blood on him and he just says, "Oh yeah, I saw this creature. This is what happens. You can totally believe me. Do not report me to the police that, you know, about possible murder, like about me being a possible murderer, serial killer." And just, you know, make some ridiculous rules because why not? Why not? Yeah, that's yeah, totally believable. Anyway, so this story is called "I Work as a Warehouse Manager: How to Survive the Night Shift," and it was posted on subreddit No Sleep by Not Necessarily, and the link is down below so you guys can explore the story, support the artist, yeah. And complain about this guy not being reported as a serial killer. Why not? Like, you know, just food for thought. Well, he is sus. He's the real serial killer. Burn the warehouse down, then bury it in cement. Seriously, hallelujah. Amen to that. Not that I'm religious, but amen to that. How many stories have been told? So far 2. Okay, I need a drink. And I mean water, not like tequila. Oh, although I think I need tequila right now. Ah, jeez. Now my lips feel like parchment paper. Just like, dry. And just crumbly. Also, how many are left? 2. If I remember correctly, 2. Oh, okay. Seriously, this guy is sus. This is like Among Us. And he was just like low-key killing people in 2005 and 2006. And just got away with it because it's like, oh yeah, they believe me. We just keep adding rules and I'm gonna be miraculously, I'll be there every fucking time. Which is great. Okay. Need to call OSHA, OSHA, I don't know, wait, what is OSHA on the warehouse? Monsters are clearly a safety violation. Yeah, I would say so. Okay. Let me event it. Okay, so let me read the next story. And this one is not exactly about the night shift, but still, it's about something happening at night. Every night, no matter the weather, something walks down our street whistling softly. You can only hear it if you're in the living room or the kitchen when they walk by, and it always starts at exactly 3:03 a.m. The sound starts faint, somewhere near the beginning of the lane near the Carson place. We are towards the middle of the street, so the whistling moves past us before fading away in the direction of the cul-de-sac. When I was younger, my sister and I would sneak into the kitchen some nights to listen. Mom and Dad didn't like that, and we would catch hell if they found us out there. But they were never too hard on us since we always stuck to the one big rule. Don't try to look at whatever was whistling. My neighborhood is a funny place. I've lived here since I was 6 and I love it. The houses are small but well kept. Good-sized yards. Plenty of places to roam. There are a lot of other kids here my age. I turned 13 back in October. We grew up together and would always play foursquare in the cul-de-sac, or roam around from back porch to back porch in the summer. This was a good place to grow up. I'm old enough to see it. And there's only the two strange things here: the night whistling and the good luck. The whistling never bothered me much. Like I said, I couldn't even hear it from my bedroom. But Mom and Dad didn't like talking about it, so I've stopped asking questions. My dad is a strong guy, tall and calm. He has an accent since he moved to the US as a kid. His family, my grandparents, they're from the islands. That's what they call it. My dad, the only time he isn't so calm is if the whistler comes up. He talks a little quicker than. Eyes move faster, and he tells us not to think about it too much and to always remember the one rule, the big rule. Do not try to look outside when the whistler goes by. Not that we could look even if we wanted. See, there are shutters on the inside of every window, thick pieces of heavy canvas that pull down from the top and latch to the bottom of the window frame. Each latch even has a small lock, about the size of what you would find on a diary. My dad locks those shutters every night before we all go to bed and keeps the key in his room. My mom, I don't know what she thinks about the whistling. I've seen her out in the living room before at 3:03 a.m. when the sound starts. I could see her if I cracked my door open just an inch to peek. She's not out there often. At least I haven't caught her much. But once or twice a month, I think she sits out there on our big red couch just listening. The whistler has the same tune every night. It's cheerful. Da-da, da-da-dum, da-da, da-da-dum. Remember how I said there are two odd things about where I live? Well, besides our night whistler, everyone in my neighborhood is really lucky. It's hard to explain, and Dad doesn't like us talking about this much either. But good things just seem to happen to people around here a lot. Usually it's small things, winning a radio contest or getting an unexpected promotion at work, or finding some arrowheads buried in the yard, the authentic kind. The weather is pretty good and there's no crime, and everybody's garden blooms extra bright in the fall. A million little blessings, I've heard my mom say about living here. But the main reason we stay here, why we moved here in the first place, is my sister Nola. She was born very sick. Something with her lungs. We couldn't even bring her home when she was born, only visit her in the hospital. She was so small, I remember. Small even compared to the other babies. A machine had to breathe for her. We moved into our house here to be closer to the hospital. As soon as we moved here, Noah started getting better. The doctors couldn't figure it out. They chalked it up to whatever they were doing, but we all could tell they were confused. But my parents knew, even I knew, Noah getting better was just another of the million little blessings we got for living in our neighborhood. So that's why we stayed even after we found out that for every small miracle that happens here every day, now and then, some bad things happen too. But they only happen if you look for the whistler. See, Our neighborhood has a welcoming committee. They show up with macaroni casserole and a gift basket and a manila folder whenever someone new moves in. They're very friendly. 4 people showed up when we moved in 7 years ago. The committee made small talk, gave me a Snickers bar, and took turns holding Nola. It was her first week out of the hospital, so they were extra careful. Then, the committee asked to speak to my parents in private, so I was sent to my room where I still managed to hear nearly every word. The welcoming committee told my parents about how nice the neighborhood was. Really exceptionally. Hard to explain kind of nice. And then they told my parents about the even harder to explain whistling that happened every morning at 3:03 a.m. and ended at the tick of 3:05 a.m. The group, our new neighbors, warned my parents that the whistling was quiet, would never harm or hurt us, as long as we didn't look for what was making the sound. This part they stressed, and I pushed my ear into the door, straining to hear them. People who went looking for the whistler had their luck change, sometimes tragically. A black cloud would hang over anyone that looked. Anything that could go wrong would. The manila envelope the committee brought contained newspaper clippings, stories about car crashes and ruined lives, public deaths, and freak accidents. Not everyone dies, I heard the head of the committee tell my dad. But the life goes out of them. Even if they live, there is no light in them ever again. No presence. My mom, I could tell she wasn't taking it seriously. She kept asking if this was some kind of prank they play on new neighbors. At one point, my mom got angry, accused the committee of trying to scare us out of the neighborhood, asked them if they were racist on account of my dad being from the islands. My dad calmed her down, told her he could tell our neighbors were sincere and they were just trying to help us. He explained that he grew up hearing these kind of stories from his mom and that he knew there were strange things that walked among us. Some of those strange things were good and some of those strange things were bad, but most were just different. After the committee left, Dad went out to the hardware store, bought the canvas blinds, the latches, and the locks and installed them on every window in the house after dinner. That first night in our new house, I crept out of my room at 3 a.m., only to find my dad awake sitting on the living room couch, holding my baby sister. My dad held up his finger in a shh motion, but patted the couch next to him. I sat and we waited. At exactly 3:03, we heard the whistling. It came and it went, just like our neighbors said. The whistling returns each night and we never look and we enjoy our million little blessings every day. Nola breathes on her own and she's grown into a strong, clever girl. My dad even joined the welcoming committee. We don't get new neighbors often. Why would anyone want to leave? But when a new family comes in, my dad and the committee bring the macaroni casserole, a gift basket, and the manila envelope. I can always tell by the look on my dad's face when he comes back if the family took the committee seriously or if we would be getting new neighbors again very soon. Not long ago, a family moved in directly next to us. The previous owner, Miss Maddie, passed away at the age of 105. She had lived a good, long life. Our new neighbors seemed like they would fit in just fine. They believed the welcoming committee took my dad's advice about the locking shutters since they had a young child of their own. Whatever newspaper clippings were in that manila envelope, whatever evidence, my dad never let us see. But I imagine it must have been awfully convincing since our neighbors got along with no issues for the first month. Oh, shit's gonna go down. One night, when our new neighbors had to leave town, they sent their son, Holden, to stay with us. He was 12, a year under me in school. I didn't know him very well before that night, but as soon as his parents dropped him off after dinner, I could tell it was going to be a bad time. Do you know who is always out there whistling every night? Holden asked the moment the adults left the room. Of course, stupid kid. The three of us were sitting in the den, some Disney movie playing idly on the television. My sister and I exchanged a glance. We don't talk about that, I said. I think it's that weirdo that lives in the big yellow house on the corner, Holden said. Mr. Tolls? My sister asked. No way, he's really nice. Holden shrugged. Must be a psycho killer then. How about you shut the fuck up, Holden? No one wants to hear that, okay? Don't be curious. Oh my god, this is gonna end badly. Nola tensed. We don't talk about it, I repeated. Let's go in my room and play Nintendo. We spent the next few hours playing games, eating popcorn, and then watching movies. A typical sleepover, but I could see Holden was getting antsy. After my parents had wished us a good night, locked the blinds, and gone to bed, Holden stood up from his beanbag and walked over to where Noah and I were sitting on my bed. Have you ever tried looking? He asked. It's nearly time. Shut up, Holden! Jesus! Like most sleepovers, we'd conveniently ignored any suggestion of a bedtime. I was shocked to see he was right. It was almost 3 a.m. I said, we don't... See, I can't. I can't even try to look because my dad locks the blinds every night and hides the key. He continued, ignoring me. So does our dad, said Nola. No, he replied. Replied Holden. No, he doesn't. You saw him do it, I said, a little sharper than I meant to sound. Holden grinned. Your dad locks the blinds, yeah, but he doesn't hide the key. He keeps it right on his normal keychain. So? I asked, worried I already knew what he would say next, because I had noticed that my dad didn't bother hiding the key anymore after all of those years, because he knew we took it seriously. So, after your dad locked up, but before your parents went to bed, I went to the bathroom, and on my way, I may have peeked into the room, and I may have seen your dad's keychain on his nightstand, and I maybe went and borrowed the key to blinds. Noah and I stared, and his grin only grew wider. Oh, fucking Holden! You're lying, I said. Holden shrugged. You can check if you want. Just open your parents' door and look. You will see his keychain right there on the nightstand. Stay here, I told both of them. Don't move a muscle. I hurried over to my parents' room but hesitated at the door. If Holden wasn't lying, my dad would be angry. Beyond angry. I was scared thinking about it. But more scared of an open window with the whistler right outside. I opened the door, barely an inch, and looked in, but it was too dark to see. Taking a deep breath, I walked into the room. 2 steps into the dark, I froze. The whistling started. And I could hear it clearly, from my parents' room. I never realized, but they must have heard the sound every night since we moved into the house. Then they never told us. I don't think I could have slept through it. I stood there, listening to the whistling come closer, unsure whether I should turn on the light or call out for my dad. Soft sounds from the living room brought me back to reality. Nola? I yelled, running out of my parents' room. Holden and Nola were standing near the front door next to a window. Holden wasn't lying. I could see him fumbling with the lock on one of the blinds. I heard a click. He did have the key. Holden let out a quick laugh. Oh, fuck you, Holden. Noah stood next to him, hunched up, afraid but maybe curious. The whistling was right outside our house now. I think I made a sound, called out. I can't remember. Time felt frozen. Clock hands nailed to the face. But I found myself moving. I'm not fast. I've never been athletic. Somehow though, I covered the space between myself and Noah in a moment. My eyes were locked on her, but I heard Holden pull the blinds all the way up, all the way down so it could release. I heard the snap of it start to raise, and I heard the whistling just on the other side of the window. But I had my arms around Nola, and I turned us so she was facing away from the window. At the same time, I jammed my eyes shut. The blind whipped open. The whistling stopped. I felt Nola shaking in my arms. Don't look, okay? Don't turn around. We were positioned so that she was facing back towards the hallway and I was facing the window. My eyes were still closed. I felt her nod into my shoulder. I reached out with the arm not holding Nola and tried to touch Holden. My hand brushed against his arm. He was shaking worse than Nola. Holden? I asked. Silence. I reached past him and gingerly felt for the window. Eyes still sealed shut. The glass was cold against my fingertips. Colder than it should have been for this time of the year. I moved my hand up the window, searching for the string to the blind. The glass began to get warmer the further I reached, and there was a gentle hum feeding back into my fingertips. I tried not to think about what might be on the other side of the window. Finally, I touched the string and yanked the blinds shut. I opened my eyes. In the dim light leaking out from the kitchen, I could make out Holden, pale and small, staring at the now closed window. Holden? I asked again. He turned towards me and screamed. Everything became a blur of motion. Lights sparked to life in the hall. Then the living room. My parents' footsteps thudded across the hardwood floor. I didn't turn to look back at them. My eyes were glued to Holden. He was pale. He bit his lips so hard there was a thin red line of blood running down his chin, and he had wet himself. This is what you get, Holden. This is what you get. Okay, so what happened? My dad asked from behind me. I managed to swivel away from Holden and look back. He looked. I'd never seen my dad scared before, but I saw it that night. In that moment, an old, ugly terror stitched on his face. A parent's fear. Jesus, I burped. Congratulations to me. Just Holden? He mouthed it to me. I nodded yes. My dad let out a breath. He looked so relieved, I nearly expected him to cheer. But then he turned to Holden and my dad's face changed. I wondered if he felt bad for feeling good that Holden was the only one that looked. I would throw Holden out the door. I know that's cruel, but I would be like, get out. Get out. Get out of my house. You are the chosen one. You are the cursed one, so get out. There was a knock on the door. We all froze. Holden whimpered. Don't answer it, my mom said. She stood at the threshold of the hall. I'd always thought she was a skeptic and just humored my dad about the windows and the whistler, but that night we were all believers. I noticed that both of my parents held baseball bats they must have taken from their bedroom. The knock came again, a little louder this time. "Please don't open the door," Holden whispered. My dad walked over to him, hugged him close. "We won't," my dad promised, still holding his bat. "Nothing is coming in here tonight." This time, the knocking was loud enough to rattle the door. Holden screamed again, and Nola clutched her arms around my neck. My mom came over and knelt down next to us, wrapping my sister and me close. Another 3 knocks. "Call the police," my mom whispered to my dad. The knocking instantly stopped. My dad looked over his shoulder at us. "Do you think he was cut off by frantic knocking that trailed off to a polite tap, tap, tap?" "Police?" something said from the other side of the door. The voice outside sounded exactly like my mom, like a parrot, repeating the words back to her. "Police. Call the police." Tap, tap, tap. "Police." My mom pulled us closer. "Police. Police. Police. Police." "Please stop," I heard her whisper. "I don't think calling them will help," my dad said. "How will we know when they are the ones at the door?" The knocking came back harder than before. The door shook. Then it stopped. After a long moment, I heard the knocking again, but it was coming from our back door. We all turned around together towards the back door, but the knocking immediately returned to the front door. Front to back, back to front. Loud, then quiet, then loud again. Suddenly, the sound was coming from both doors at once. Big, heavy blows like a sledgehammer. Then something started rapping against all the windows in the house. Then the walls. It was like we were living inside a drum with a dozen people trying to play at once. Or we were a turtle and something was attempting to claw us out of our shell. "Stop!" Holden yelled. The knocking died. I won't tell," Holden said, staring at the door. "I promise, I won't tell anyone what I saw. Just please go away." We waited for nearly a minute. Then we heard it. A soft tap, 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 coming from the window Holden had looked through earlier. Holden started to cry, sobbing like a prisoner watching gallows being built outside their cell. My dad held him, brushed his hair, but never lied to him. Never told him things would be okay. The tapping at the window went on for the rest of the night. We huddled together in the living room for I don't even know how long. Eventually, my mom tried to take us kids into my room while my dad stayed to watch the door. But the second we moved into my bedroom, the knocking came back. So loud it was impossible to ignore. I was afraid the door couldn't take it. We went back to the living room and knocking stopped. Only the tap on the window remained. None of us slept that night. The tapping stopped at around 7 a.m. That's about the time the sun comes up here. We waited another 2 hours before my dad opened the blinds from one window. He made us all go back to my parents' bedroom first. I heard him open the door, then come back in. "Okay," he told us. "It's done." Holden's parents came back around lunchtime. My mom and dad walked Holden over to his house and they all went inside for quite a while. Nola and I watched from the window. She stuck to me the whole day, right at my side, sometimes holding my hand. When my parents came back, they looked grim, but wouldn't tell us what they said to Holden's family. It was a Sunday, so we all spent the day together, ordered pizza and watched movies. That night, everyone slept in my room. Noah and my mom in the bed with me, my dad in a chair he'd pulled over. There was no knocking that night or any night since. We didn't see much of Holden or his parents for the rest of that week, but by Thursday, there was a moving truck in their driveway. Noah and I watched them packing the whole afternoon after school. What sticks with me most was how tired Holden and his parents looked. All three had the same pallor, grim mouths and lightless eyes. Even from across the street, I could tell something was wrong. Holden and his family were gone before sunset. I remember what the original welcoming committee said to my parents when we moved in. Not everyone who looks at the Whistler dies, but even those that live have the light go out of them, and the rest of their lives are full of misfortune. A million little tragedies. I think Holden's parents must have looked, either to comfort him if they didn't believe, or share the burden if they did. I watched Nola some days, happy and young and alive, and I wonder if I'd been slower, if she'd looked out the window that night. Would I have looked too? To comfort her? To share the burden? I'm glad I don't have to find out. We still live in that house, in that neighborhood. We still hear our Whistler walking past every night. The blessings, the luck, the good things here are too good to leave. But we're careful. We don't have friends over to spend the night anymore. And my dad hides the key to the blinds very, very well. Not that I've gone looking. Some things you just don't need to look for. Okay. Wow. Okay, wow. Damn. Yeah, this was scary. Also, fuck you, Holden. Why would you do this? Why, stupid kid? Oh, the kid is a good big brother. Yeah, he is. That's like the, bittersweet ending. At least he protected his sister, but like, holy shit. Well, the family learned something, especially Holden. Well, it was like Holden, so Holden. I think so, Holden. I don't know, maybe I'm pronouncing it weird, but that's okay. Yeah, but this story was titled, Something Walks Whistling Past My House Every Night at 3:03 a.m. And it was posted to subreddit No Sleep by Grand Theft Motto. That's a great username. You guys should check it out. It's also, the link is in the description down below. Okay, let me just take a short break. Damn, because my throat's going. Okay. I'm not getting much sleep tonight. Oh my god. Yeah, just if you hear whistling, just don't go to the window. Just like, cover your face with the blanket and just don't look. Like, yeah. Thank God I live on the 13th floor, so I don't. Even if something did walk past the building, I won't see it and I won't look, and I'll just be like, yeah, no, it's okay. If I hear whistling, I'm like, nah, I'm good. I'm not curious. I can live my life without it. Refresh with some wine. Water break. Yep. Okay. Okay. Oh, Holden, but he did something he shouldn't do, so he's called Holden now. Jesus. Okay, damn. Wait, what? Okay, I'm confused. Why? Wait. I just have to check something, because this stream was supposed to be members only chat. Why does YouTube do this to me? So stupid. Like, I keep setting it up so that it's okay. Well, next one. I'll just I'll just set it up next time. I don't know why. Like, every time I kind of try to set it up, and it's supposed to be, like, some of the streams, it's supposed to be members only chat, but then it's just like, it's not. Oh well. Okay, so honestly, my throat is kind of tired, so I don't think I'm gonna read the last story. I'm just gonna leave it for next time, because yeah, like my throat is kind of like burning. There was supposed to be the fourth story, but this time I'm just gonna move it to the next Full Body Chill stream. So that's it for today. Wait. Oh, okay. I thought there was like another tip, another donation, but there was not. I live on the bottom floor, which sucks, but I do keep the window covered with a pull-down blind and a black sheet to be safe. Oh, okay, nice. Someone's prepared. Wait, wouldn't it be worse if you heard whistles outside while on the 31st floor? Jesus. Yeah, that would be bad. No. I would not go out, and I would not look, and I would just be like, okay, I'm moving. The next day I would be like, yeah, I'm out of here. Okay, wait, and it's strong this way. Yep, YouTube doesn't like members only chat. Jesus, seriously, I keep like trying to set it up, but for some reason like it just doesn't work. Like, it was supposed to be today's stream was supposed to be members only chat, and it just didn't work. Like, I set it up when I was like scheduling the stream, but I guess YouTube is just telling me to F off. But Sona, I can't afford membership. Hey, no worries. Like, it's not gonna be every stream. I'm just saying, like, oh, there are gonna be some streams that I would like to be members only chat. I just need to figure out how the frick should I set it up on YouTube so that it actually goes through. Okay. Great story, Sphere, and I can't wait for more in the next Full Body Chills. Yeah! If everything goes as planned, there's gonna be another one on Sunday evening, probably around the same time, so like 6 p.m. But it might change. I still have to like kind of set it in stone. But so the stream on Sunday might be cancelled. It really depends on how I coordinate it, because it was supposed to be a collab, and we'll see if that's gonna work out. But yeah, so that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for your tips, for the donation, and thank you so much everyone for the memberships and all the Patreons for supporting my channel. Before we end the stream, I just wanted to remind you guys that there's a campaign going on Patreon, and the campaign is basically this. So you can get a sticker, or you can get the acrylic stand. Both are drawn by me. Yours truly. Anyway, so both are drawn by me, and you can also participate in a competition, in a contest, which is basically solving the secret code that's going to be revealed on September 15th, and that's in 1 week. So that's when the code is going to be published. And this is mostly for the lower tiers, because the higher tier, so $25 and over, you guys just get the acrylic stand guaranteed. So you don't have to participate, but you can. Obviously you can, and you will be listed. If you solve the code, I will definitely list you in the, on the list of people who solved the code correctly. Jesus, what the fuck? I can hear music. I literally just heard music, and I'm not sure if it's in my apartment or not. Well, I am not checking. I'm not going out of my office. So now I'm gonna live off of my office. I don't know how I'm gonna eat, because it's very far from the front entrance. I can't really order Uber Eats here. Shit. Okay, try and stop me. I want that code. Hey, of course. Listen, you guys, if you want to solve the code, that's fine. If you're on a higher tier and you still want to solve the code, that's the frick? I can hear the music. Okay, that's fucking weird. Yeah. So obviously you can still solve the code. If you're, on a higher tier, you will be listed as one of the people who solved it. And mind you, if you you know, if you attempt to solve the code, if you're on a lower tier, so like $5 or $10, and you attempt to solve the code, but you don't get into the top 10 of people who, you know, who won the acrylic stand, but you still want the acrylic stand, you can still change your pledge to $25 tier, like any time within this month, within the duration of the campaign, and you will get it. So if you like attempt the, you know, to solve the code, but you don't win, you know, I announced the 10 winners, and you're not in there, you're not on the list, you can still, like, by the end of this month, you can still change your pledge to 25, and you know, if your payment goes through, if it's registered as $25 pledge, then obviously I'm gonna send you the acrylic stand. I'm gonna send you a complete set. Okay. How thin are the walls? The walls are fucking thick. It's a pretty solid building, so the walls are pretty thick. I'm not sure. I just started hearing music, so and it's just kind of a creepy music, so I don't know. This might be my last stream. So if it's my last stream, well, it was a pleasure. You know, it was a pleasure to tell you some spooky stories, tell you some you know, true crime cases, and yeah, goodbye. Oh my. Maybe your neighbors are playing music. I don't know, but it's kind of creepy music, and I kind of can hear it from outside, like outside my window. So that's weird, because I'm on the 13th floor. Oh, we can't hear it. Well, I mean, I can, so that's weird. So that's it. Again, this may be my last stream. So stay safe out there. Always lock your doors and windows. Bury your hexes, and good luck. And I hope it was a pleasure. It was a pleasure to tell you the spooky stories. Oh, don't say that. Well, I mean, if you don't hear from me, then that's it. That's it. I'm gone. But until the next time. Bye.